Hi, I'm Lynette and welcome. Today I'm going to be showing you swatches and 3 looks, that's right, 3 looks, using the Natasha Denona Glam palette. Now, this was my first time using any Natasha Denona eyeshadows, my first time using this palette. So if you would like to know what I think about this palette in particular and about the eyeshadow formula, and if I think Natasha Denona is worth the hype, then keep on watching. So, the Natasha Denona Glam palette. She finally here. I know I'm late, but listen, I wasn't sure. I kept going back and forth about whether or not I wanted to buy this palette. And then once I decided to do it, I said I'm gonna wait for the sale. So, I got her for 20% off during the Sephora holiday sale. And she retails for $65. And this is the palette. Mine has fingerprints and smudges all over it at this point. And it's smaller. I know I say this about every single thing I get, but it's smaller in person than it appears in video. But it's a nice size, actually. I'm not mad at the size. And then on the back, they have the pinpoint holes because the palette is magnetized, so you can take a pin or something to stick in those holes and pop out the shadows and change them around in the palette if you want to, or swap them out with other Natasha Denona shadows from a similar sized palette. So inside you do get a mirror and then the 15 shadows. Of those 15 shadows, only 5 are matte. So not a great matte to shimmer ratio, but there you are. It's a cool tone neutral palette. You have some cool tone taupe shades, you have some gray shades, matte and metallic, you have a couple of peachy rose shadows, you have a gold in here, you have a couple of champagne-y shades. Let's get into the tutorials. I have 3 looks that I want to show you. I used, I think, all but 2 of the eyeshadows in this palette. So I use damn near every shadow in the palette. And so after the tutorial, I will come back and I'll let you know what I thought about, what I think about the palette, what I think about this eyeshadow formula, my experience with doing those 3 looks today, and if I think it's worth the hype. Is this palette worth the hype? Is Natasha Denona eyeshadow formula worth the hype? So if you'd like to see how I created 3 looks, including this one that I'm wearing right now, using the Natasha Denona Glam palette, then keep on watching. For look number 1, I'm going to concentrate on this side of the palette with that grays and this sort of champagne-y platinum color here. So I'm going to do a cool tone gray look. At least that's the look I'm going to try to achieve with this part of the palette here. For each look, I used the Louise base in the shade Rumour 5, blended it from the eyebrow all the way down to the lash line. And then I set the base using the NYX Cosmetics Blame It on Midnight eyeshadow single. Now I'm going to take this light gray shade and I'm going to put that in the crease, and it is called Crease. And it's a lot darker on my skin once I applied it and started to blend. It showed up much darker on my skin than it appears in the pan, which was definitely a surprise, but a good surprise. Now I'm going to take this really light, pale stone gray matte shade, and I'm going to place that in the inner corner of the crease. And after building it up, I had to go back in the pan several times to build up the shade. It did show up on my skin. And then I also used it to blend out the edges of that first crease shade. And now I'm going to take Lash Line, and it's this really dark slate gray matte, and I'm placing that in the outer V area. It's almost black, but it's not. It's like a charcoal gray, really dark. And now I'm taking this metallic shade, and it's a pewter. It's like a pewter. That's the only way I can describe it. And I wanted to try it first dry to see how it would work out, and I ended up using most of the shimmer shades dry. And now I'm going to take this Gunmetal Shimmer Metallic shade, and I'm going to place that in the inner part of the lid and up into the crease and blend it into that pewter shade that I just placed onto the lid. And where I felt like I needed to really build up that first lid shade I put on, this shadow didn't need to be built up at all. Now I'm taking Lash Line, that really dark gray matte shade that I used on the outer V area, and I'm just going to place that onto the lower lash line. And then back in with that crease shade. Basically, I'm just going to take all the shadows that I used in the crease and place them onto the lower lash line, blending them into one another. And now I'm using the LA Girl Glide Gel Liner Pencil in the shade Smoky Charcoal, and I'm going to put that in my waterline. And this is the completed look. I used my Urban Decay 24/7 Glide On Pencil in the shade Demolition, which is just a dark brown, to line my lash line, and then mascara. Now on to look number 2. For look number 2, I'm going to concentrate on these two more warm, this more warm taupe matte shade, and this more warm like terracotta shade, and then these warmer metallics like this gold here, right here, and then perhaps this one right here, this one right here, which looks a little more goldish. And we'll see how it goes. We'll see if this brown is dark enough to serve as my outer corner deepening shade. So I'm gonna start this look off with this blend shade right here, because I'm curious to see what that's gonna look like. And apologies in advance for any awkward angles. I'm not used to filming this eye, and it's not okay. I'm starting to see, as I'm building it up, I'm starting to see it a bit. Very, very close to my skin tone, this shade. Now I'm going to take this smoke shade and place that on the outer V area. And this looked more warm to me in the pan, but it definitely is a cool taupe. And this is showing up a lot darker than I thought it would, which I am happy about. Now I'm going to take this gold shade right here and place that on my lid. Very, very soft. Very, very soft. I'm just gonna take some on my finger and see if I can get a little more intensity from it. And that seems to be doing the trick. Okay, I didn't realize I wasn't recording. I took that blend shade that we started off this look with in the crease, and I put it on the lower lash line, if you can see it. And now I'm going in with smoke, and that was the dark shade that we put in the outer V area. And now I'm going to take this brow bone shade and place that in the inner corner. I'm going to take center eyelid on the same brush, and I'm just going to place that on top. Ooh, I don't think that's the look I was going for either. Doesn't exactly go with this gold, but okay. Now I'm going to take that same brown liner that I used on the other eye, and I'm going to, well, the same liner I used to line my lash line here in both looks, and I'm going to place it in the waterline. And this is the completed eye look for look number 2. Now let's move on to third and final look. For look number 3, I'm gonna keep it relatively simple, I think. And I'm going to focus on using these 2 rosy, peachy, well, this is more rosy, this is more peachy, shimmer shades here on the lid. And I'm gonna try and do sort of kind of a halo eye with it. As you can see, I'm taking it all the way in to the outer corner here. So I'm gonna place this on this side, and then I'm going to place it in the inner portion of the eyelid as well. And I'm not going to connect it in the crease. And I want to wet the shade, but I feel like if I do that, the shade I'm going to put in the middle is not going to pop out or stand out as much. So and I'm going to place that right in the middle between that shadow that I just made bookends on either side. And not sure if that's doing a whole lot. not sure that you can see much of a differentiation between the one I've just popped on and then the ones on either side of it. So I think I will go ahead and wet this one and see if I can get it to pop out a little more. Oh yeah, it's popping now. But not sure if that metallic shade I chose to put on either side of it was a good choice. And I'm gonna go back in with Smoke, give myself a little more definition. Probably would show up more if I wet it, so let me try that. Okay, now I'm going in with it wet. Yeah, that shows up a little better. Now going in with Smoke. Want to darken that up a bit. Not going to bring it all the way, just like a quarter of the way across. And I'm gonna go in with inner corner. And almost forgot my waterline. So I'm gonna go and try. I'm gonna try and go in with this neutral bone color liner by Milk Makeup in the shade BCC. And this is the completed look. I use my House of Lashes in the style Juliet. Okay, so those were all of the looks 1, 2, and 3. Let me know in the comments below which one was your favorite. Now, my experience with this palette. I enjoyed working with this palette. I enjoyed working with the eyeshadows. Let me turn that down there. I enjoyed working with the eyeshadows, the mattes, all of the shadows, okay? All of the shadows, when you swatch them, they feel soft and smooth in the pan. That's the mattes and the shimmer shades. And the mattes were all pigmented. I was surprised that all of them had showed up on my skin except for Smoke. I mean, not Smoke, Blend. That like warm, it looks like a warm peachy shade in the palette. And like sort of a warm terracotta, but not that warm. I mean, once I built it up, you can see a little bit of it on my skin tone, but not so much. And I mean, I guess it is really a good shade for blending if you're my skin tone because yeah, you don't really see too much of it. So, but I was surprised at this crease shade here, and transition showed up on me, and crease actually was a lot darker once I applied it to the skin and blended it out and built it up than it looks in the pan. The same thing with Smoke. To me, Smoke looks like, compared to all of the other mattes in this palette, look more on the warm side of a warm brown. But once I put it in the crease, not only is it very cool, but it's definitely more taupe. So it was a very cool, dark taupe shade, which I was not expecting. Transition showed up on me. I put it under the brow and in here in the inner corner on the first look, and it showed up. So I was very happily, pleasantly surprised at that. And then the metallics, I used most of them dry. And just like, for example, Viseart eyeshadow, their metallics. These are soft metallics. These are not your bling bling, very foiled, wet metallic, wet metal shades like you're gonna find in Juvia's Place or Give Me Glow. Like, these are soft, subtle, more subtle, sophisticated, grown metallics. Okay, these are the metallics that you can wear to work, you know, that are not going to be like bling in your face, look at me, but still very pretty, just softer. And I don't mind that at all. I think they were very pretty. It is soft, but it is pretty. I liked it. You can use them wet or dry. I used the majority of the ones that I used in all 3 looks today dry, and they came out very nice. Again, soft. I did use one of them wet. This one right here, inner corner, which looks very textured and a lot more foiled, I think, than the rest of the metallics in this palette, except for maybe this one, the gold shade. But I was expecting, when I put that on the middle lid for this eye look, I expected it to be a lot more punchy, and it wasn't. So I ended up wetting it, and you know, it amped it up just a bit, but not very much. And this shade is the one that I had fallout on. I had fallout on my face after using this eyeshadow. So you want to be careful with it. But the others, I didn't really experience any fallout with the mattes or with the metallics, using them to dry on my lid. So that was nice too. And yeah, I mean, this is definitely a cool tone palette, which is what I wanted. Now, I'm going to be honest, by the time I got to the third look, this look, I was bored. I'm just gonna say I was bored, and I don't know if that's the palette or if that's just my lack of imagination and creativity, and it very well could be. But yeah, by look 3 I was kind of bored because you are very limited, and I knew that going in. You're limited in the matte shades you can use, your crease shades, your transition shades, your outer corner deepening shades. I like to deepen up my outer corners and smoke, you know, give myself more definition and a little more smoke. So you're really limited to just these 5 matte shades here. And this light one right here, you know, is not going to work for me as a transition. Or if you have deeper skin tones, it's not going to work as a transition shade. But yeah, so they showed up darker than I thought they would, which is nice. But again, you're still very limited to either a really dark cool taupe or a dark gray. But again, you know, in buying this palette, I already knew that. And then with the shimmer shadows, I definitely liked the first look I did because I used this gunmetal gray metallic, and then this lash line, which is the dark charcoal gray, which I really enjoyed. And so these cool like gunmetal gray shades really liked. So really loved that look. But the rest, I mean, the rest are nice too, but I really think like she didn't need to have all 3 of these gold champagne shades, in my opinion. I think like these 2, they're all different, right? This one's more bronze, this one's a little more champagne-y, this one looks a little more peach, but I just didn't feel like all of them were necessary in this palette, as well as these 2 more peachy rosy shades, metallics. Again, pretty. This one actually looks more pink, but again, I don't really think we needed both of these in this palette. So I would have preferred to have swapped out some of these metallics and maybe replaced them with a plummy taupe or a plummy gray, plummy taupe or plummy gray matte shade would have been nice, and maybe some more like purple-esque plum, a metallic shade would have been nice. So I think that would have added a little more variety. It would have still kept it cool tone, but would have added just a tad more variety in this palette, which is what I would have preferred. So you know, in going into this palette, I'm using this palette for a specific look, right? A cool tone, probably like gray, gunmetal type look. That's me personally. That's what I'm going into this palette for. Or if I want a cool tone, taupey, neutral eye look, a very specific eye look, that's what I'm going into this palette for. And it's a specific palette, right? Because it's a cool tone, neutral palette. So am I going to get a lot of looks out of this palette? No. I don't think. I think the 3 looks that I did today is probably, you know, they're all going to look sort of in that vein, in that similar vein. So not going to get a whole lot of looks with this palette. Would have liked just a tad more diversity, but for what it is, I like it. I wanted a cool tone neutral palette, and this is exactly what this is. Now, in terms of the formula, I like the formula. The mattes, again, pigmented, but blended very easily. Because they're so easy to blend and because they're pigmented too, it was quick. It didn't take long to do an eye look. So I definitely think this palette would be good for beginners because you don't have to spend time building up shadows. They're not so pigmented that you're going to go in with too much and be like, oh my God, and then can't blend it out, have a difficult time blending it out. Because even if you do go in with a little more than you wanted, they're so easy to blend that it's not going to take you long to blend it out. So definitely think this is a good palette for beginners. And definitely, if you don't have a lot of time to do a look, I think this eyeshadow formula is really, really nice because it doesn't take long to blend them out, to apply them, to blend them out, and to put them on. So I definitely like that. I do like the smoothness and the creaminess of all of the shadows. I do like how easy and how smoothly the metallics went on the lid, and they all just applied really easily, really nicely. So yeah, I do like the formula. I understand why, just with this palette, because again, I haven't used any of the formulas in any of her other palettes, and they seem to be, her formula seems to change and be inconsistent from palette to palette. But this palette, I can see why people get excited about this formula because it is a really nice formula. So, you know, I get it. I get it. I am very interested in using, because this was the first Natasha Denona palette that I bought just this year, the mini gold palette. Still haven't used it yet, but the next time I do a green look, I'm going to use this palette. So I'm definitely interested to see if the shadows, the formula in this palette is going to perform like the ones in this palette. But yeah, so overall, I like the palette. I was not excited about getting that. I said that in my last haul video where I hauled this palette. Was not really excited about it, but after using it, I definitely am more excited about it. Now, am I super excited? No, because again, it is, you know, it's not a very, you're not gonna get a whole lot of variety from this palette, but for what it is, I do like it, and I did enjoy using it today. So let me know in the comments below, do you have this palette? Are you thinking about checking it out? What do you think? What are your thoughts? Also, again, let me know which of the 3 looks was your favorite. My favorite, again, did I say it already? My favorite was look number 1, that gunmetal taupey gray eyeshadow look. That's just my aesthetic. But look number 2, I didn't really care for it while I was doing it, but after it was finished, I did like it. And this look, actually, you know, I didn't really care for this look either, but now that I'm looking at it, I like it also. So I got 3 looks from the palette. They were all different, and for the most part, they were all different, and all 3 I do like. So yeah, I think it was a good investment. If you liked this video, then please give it a like and consider subscribing, because I do eyeshadow tutorials, makeup hauls, and swatches here on my channel every Saturday. I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope to see you again next week. Until then, bye-bye.